What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Gsluke here with our round 3 live stream for the Genesis Invitational. Excited? It's Friday evening. Hopefully everyone out there is having a swell start to their weekend. I know some of you might be finishing up your nights, right? Particularly if you're there with the older crowd, might be just starting your night, or you might be staying in like myself. I went out there, played golf with my buddies today, and kind of just unwinding and resting here this evening. So whatever it is, hopefully you're having a stellar Friday, and we can get this weekend started with a little bit of golf action. So here in this live stream, going to break down everything you need to know for tomorrow, whether it's for PGA DFS, for Showdown, over there on the prop side for Underdog or Prize Picks. We're going to have you covered. So looking forward to it. I can see a few of you down there in chat. What's going on, Parker, Steven? Both of you guys early to the party. You'll love to see it. You got Robert down there, Matt Paoli. What's going on? Happy birthday, Matt, by the way. You got a birthday boy down there in the chat. Robert with the Tiger call. Yeah, didn't really kill it for Showdown, but we got our boy to the weekend. So excited to be able to watch him over the weekend. And boy, this field is just absolutely stacked. I mean, top end of the board is just top 5, top 10 player after top 10 player. A few guys like Lee Hodges, right, that we had at $6,100 this week up there towards the top. So cautiously optimistic right now about our chances in 4-round stuff. Today on the prop side could have been a lot better. I do have to say it was one of my more poor days I can really remember for quite some time. It's really probably been like 3-4 months since I've had such a poor day. So is what it is. But over there in DFS, much brighter prospects today. So a little hit or miss. What's going on, Matt? Plays last night were great besides Tiger. Yeah, man, Tiger, it was more of like a homer pick than anything. I am going back to the well, though. So caution, he is going to be a play once again tomorrow, but we'll talk about the reasons why. How about Rom getting bailed out on 17? Yeah, and it wasn't just on 17. He also got bailed out with a couple chip shots yesterday that could have easily gone like 20 feet past the hole that obviously dropped for birdies. And then he had multiple tee shots. I can think of 2 off the top of my head on his first 9 there on Thursday that bounced off trees. One of them went back into the fairway, and then one of them would have gone about 10, 20 yards deep into a forest, and it was one of the more gnarly forests there on property, but it bounced off the tree and into the first cut. So he's been getting just break after break, which good for him, right? He's one of the top players. It's about time that he gets a few things going his way, but it sucks when you don't have him. I have to say that, right? It's annoying, like you were saying. Amont says, let's get to business. Tell me Patrick Cantlay isn't heating up. He is. We'll get to it, man. Hey, no rush out there. We ain't gonna rush into this. What's going on, Starlito? Nathan says, you notice that boxing magazine Forever in the background. Is it signed? It is. It's signed by Muhammad Ali and Frazier. So it's a pretty cool one. I'll bring it up on stream here at some point. I'm not going to do it here because our track record with going and trying to pick things up off the back shelf and then bringing it up to show you guys isn't a very good one, right? The last time we did it resulted in the Kenny Pickett helmet getting dropped in that old mess. So I'll show it to you on the Discord. I'll probably bring it on stream at some point. But yeah, it's one of the few artifacts I have back there. That it's probably one of my favorites, in the top 5 at the very least. But yeah, good eye. It is signed. More trades. Did Fowler hit 3 or 3.5 birdies or better? I'm not sure. I didn't end up picking that today. So I honestly don't know. I think he got 3 or maybe 2 birdies. And I'm not sure. But yeah, not really the best play for round 2. He actually got bumped to 4 birdies over there in Underdog. I saw a lot of people that were taking that over 3.5 birdies. Definitely wouldn't have taken it at 4. So I'll just say that. Honestly, I almost went to the fade there at 4 birdies. PD says Rahm has to be the luckiest golfer this week. Historically, John Rahm, I mean, think of the COVID thing, right? He ended up getting the COVID, prognosis after round 3 when he was up by like 5 to 7 shots. That was extremely unlucky. So he's lucky this week. So he was due for that, I would say, like Harmon aside. And Matt says he's been getting lucky for weeks. Yeah, it seems like it, man. He's due, though, right? After that COVID thing, I think it's kind of the golf gods giving him back a little bit of favor. But let's look at the golf course. Let's get into what we saw today, which was right about what we saw round 1. Slightly harder from the scoring perspective, which was not due to the weather. If you take a look at the reported wind gusts over here on Friday, you can see in the morning there were, slightly gustier conditions from like 9 to 10 a.m., but it was an hour, maybe an hour and a half long. So that wasn't really what led to the scoring differences. In fact, if you split it by wave, you go over here to Friday's round, of course, it played over par in both waves. So maybe it was pin locations. Maybe the course is getting slightly firmer or faster. That's what I tend to think. Over here on the West Coast, these championship level golf courses like a Pebble Beach, a Farmers, and especially Riviera Country Club are designed for perfect drainage. And they'll put sand on the greens overnight. They'll roll them, they'll cut them twice, whatever they need to do to speed them up each and every round. And you heard the tour officials after round one say that for rounds 1 and 2, they don't want to do anything crazy, but as soon as they're able to make the cut line, get it down to 60, 70 players playing over the weekend, they can ramp up the intensity because they don't have to worry about rounds taking all day, right? Rounds leaking into the next day, like what we have here. They don't have to worry about that on Saturday and Sunday. So they can make the course a little bit more difficult. So I think it less so has to do with the winds that we saw. It is more so just due to the firmness and fastness of the course, which is kind of counteracted by what you see there with the PM scoring was actually slightly better. But I'll remind you, right, the PM had guys like John Rahm, Max Homa up top, a few other top performers like Ali Hodges were in that wave, Patrick Cantlay, so on and so forth. So from like a talent level perspective, I mean, there were some top end guys in the AM wave, but I mean, Rory was like the one headliner, I would say. At JT would be one of the other headliners, but then it was like Spieth, Hideki Matsuyama, right? If you're looking at like the 10K range and most specifically the 9K range, most of them were playing in the PM today. So it's hard to say whether this was more a talent gap difference, firmness of the greens. Maybe it was the slight wind difference that we saw there, but I don't think it's anything to try and overanalyze. When we're looking at the weather here for Saturday's round, so here for round 3, looks flat across the board. So in terms of your sustained winds, they never get upwards of 5 miles an hour, which is pretty much like playing in a dome. And then from your wind gust perspective, it gets a little gustier, right towards 10, 11 a.m. I believe they're teeing off at like 8:40 a.m. local time over there. So they'll be teeing off when conditions are perfect. Maybe it gets slightly worse as some of the leaders start to tee off, but there's not going to be any advantage to be had, at least in round, when it comes to some of those wind gusts. You take a look at Windfinder, you can see they have it flat across the board too. In the morning hours, between like 5 to 6 miles an hour. In fact, they have it literally flat across the board. And then in the afternoon, they have it closer to like 4.7 miles an hour. So I don't know if this is accurate. It feels like this has to be off because they have it at the same exact magnitude for like 5, 6 straight hours. You can see over here, they have it switching direction randomly right there, right around 2 p.m. You can see they have it going from 6 miles an hour to right around 4.7 and in the completely opposite direction. So and you can see over here in Windfinder, they're not really calling for that, right? You can see they have the winds going to the north, I guess, west over there in the morning hours. In the afternoon, it's going towards the northeast. So it's not like it's going in a complete 180. So it's hard to say who's going to be right here, right? They're calling for different magnitudes of wind. They're calling for different wind directions. Just, I guess the moral of the story are that these meteorologists are absolute slapdicks. They don't have to be right to do their job, which I'm extremely envious of. If I could go out there, have like a 40% hit rate or like a 30% hit rate when it comes to my broadcasts, I'd have a much easier life, right? I probably wouldn't have to do as much work. So hats off to you meteorologists. You've got the best gig in the world, but definitely don't be looking at these forecasts and think that they're the gospel's truth. They're far from it. These guys can't make up their mind at all. Let's go over here to the player pool now. We'll catch up on chat as well and start talking through this strategy here on Showdown, because for round 3, it tends to be one of the slates with a larger edge because of some of the ownership concerns. And, for round 2 Showdown, it's something that I harped on yesterday. You're trying to look for players that are just going to be lower owned than their peers, right? It's a single round sample size. It's golf. It's extremely volatile. So if you just blindly play the ownership game, and particularly like for round 2, round 3 Showdown, you're going to have a lot of success. You combine that with trying to take players that perhaps are striking it well over the first few rounds. Maybe you take guys that are just seemingly underpriced, so on and so forth. That's how you really create that edge. But if you just went out there and blindly played ownership, right, just blindly took the game theory approach, you could just find success using that alone when it comes to Showdown. So I just want to point that out there. So a few things to note. all of the projected points, player pool, all of that is going to be posted on the Patreon. So if you're looking for all of the players I'm getting to, the exact ownership numbers for a lot of the players I'm referencing, that is where that's going to be. But I'll give you guys a good idea here. So up top, Jon Rahm, your highest owned player, should not surprise you. Max Homa, also up there in that same sort of range. And then you're mixing in guys like Morikawa, right? Rory McIlroy, even though he's -6, is still getting just as much ownership as some of those other top end players. It's all hovered around the guys that have played well, right? Patrick Cantlay, you could lump into that. Sungjae Im getting quite a bit of steam. He's also relatively underpriced. So Sungjae Im's getting a lot more attention for that reason. Will Zalatoris, right? People wanted to throw him to the street, right? He was single digit owned for a 4-round contest this week. He's getting ownership now that he's -5. He's in contention, and I believe he hasn't even finished up his round yet. Might even be able to make another birdie out there. He's going to be much higher owned than a lot of his peers. And I hate to pick on these players specifically, but I'm fading all of them, right? Jon Rahm, Max Homa, Colin Morikawa, all these sort of players, because they're getting so much more ownership than their peers. And you may ask me, are they capable of going out there and posting another solid performance? The answer is obviously yes, right? They're more than capable of doing so. But the real question is whether they're able to go out there and post the nuts performance, right? Because everyone up here, and I'm going to include Tom Kim, go the whole way up to Jon Rahm here, is more than capable of going off tomorrow. I don't care if they're in form. I don't care if they're a solid course fit, so on and so forth. They're not all equally likely to go out there and succeed, but they've all at least got in the same ballpark when it comes to chance, because it's not for an entire tournament. It's a single round sample size over 18 holes, which just, it's like an NBA game, right? When you're trying to predict a player's range of outcomes, sure, like Giannis, right? You can project him in like the 20 to, I'd say 40 point range pretty much every single night. But somebody that's maybe a little bit more volatile up top, could be anywhere between, let's say, like a 5 to 40 point projection. I'm thinking of a Jordan Clarkson, for example, right? That has a much wider range of outcomes up top. All of these guys are like the Giannis's, right? That have that like 30 to 40 point outcome. So don't feel like you have to jam in like Jon Rahm, right? Like if you want to try and get ownership and trying to get leverage, right? Scotty Scheffler is the guy up top. He's like half the ownership of those other two players, and he's at -4. It's not like he's played poorly, right? He's in the top 20 of the event at this point, and Scotty Scheffler's going overlooked. Like that's how easy it is to go out there and play the ownership game, and I would implore you to do so. So before we go player by player, give you guys a few leans that I'm going with, right? A few plays that we're going with. Of course, I'm going to give you guys a few core picks to rally behind. Let's go ahead and go through chat. So we have Jack who says Rory is lurking. He is, and I feel like people are writing him off. But from ownership and Showdown, I have him getting enough steam just because it is Rory McIlroy. I don't think people are that foolish, right, to go out there and fade him, considering how he's stricken the ball over the first 2 rounds. But at one point during his second round, I think it was at least like 8-9 holes in. I'm not sure if he broke the streak. I left during half of his round, went out there, played the round of my life, by the way, which I want to talk about here in a second. But Rory McIlroy hadn't made a putt over 10 feet for birdie all week until that point. I think he had longer than that for a par putt there in round 1, but he hadn't made a birdie over 10 feet for the entire week. That may have continued through the entire second 9. I'm not sure. Again, I didn't actually watch the second 9 for Rory today. But if that did, you have to think that changes. He's used to making those 20, 25 footers. So he's lurking, and he has a really good chance to go out there. And I think he could be your leader after tomorrow. That's realistic, but I think at the very least he's going to get into contention. What optimizer do I use for DFS? I actually have my own custom coded one. So it's something that I've been using for 2-3 years. I have one for NBA I use. I have one for NFL as well. I used to use a few of the ones that are still on the market. So back in the day, Roto Grinders, you may have heard of that website, used to have like a very rudimentary like optimizer that they put out. I used that like 6 years ago when I was first playing NBA. So you could look at that. I'm sure it's still around, but like Fantasy Cruncher, I have more recent experience with. Anytime my optimizer goes down, I have that as a backup. So that's something that you could check out. I've heard the Solver's decent. There's a bunch of different optos out there, but the one that I use when I have everything running is my own personal custom one, which is a pain in the ass. It takes me at least a couple hours to get set up to go out there and use, but it's customizable and I love it. And it works for me. So Matt says, I think Willie Z will benefit from the harder greens. I think so too, but I think for Showdown, like it might just be he might be late to the party, right? He's already out there balling out. He might go out there, shoot something like 4 or 5 under par, but now he's chalked. So I hope he goes out there and has that day because I have an outright bet on Will Zalatoris. I have a bunch of them in my DFS lineups, but I won't be playing them on Showdown, unfortunately. What's going on, Carson? It's good. He said, need to get you out there on tour after your round today. Yeah, let's talk about the round. I meant to mention it, actually. Let me get a sip of, and by the way, this is a Crown and Coke. It's in a wine glass. So this isn't wine. I know it kind of looks like wine actually, yeah, it really looks like wine with the lighting that we have on there. It's not, it's a Crown and Coke. just for the record. But yeah, I played Breakers West down here in Florida, which is a difficult course. One of the higher slope ratings in all of South Florida. And I shot a 75. It wasn't super windy. It was relatively soft too. So I had a few things going for me, but to shoot 3 over par, and I was playing against my brother he could probably play on the Corn Ferry Tour if he went out there and like legitimately went out there and practiced every single day. And somebody else who was already on the Corn Ferry Tour before, a recent player. And I beat both of them, which I don't play very often. I get out like maybe once, maybe twice a week to play. My brother and the other guy we were playing with play 4 or 5, sometimes like 7, 8 times a week, right? Multiple times a day. That felt pretty nice. All my irons are going like 15 to 20 yards further. I had a pitching wedge 160 yards today, which is just completely foreign for me. I was really focusing on compressing the golf ball. I was making a concerted effort to really try and go after some beaver divots. I think watching Max Homa kind of, I don't want to say it inspired me to try and compress the ball a little bit more, but it did, particularly with the low ball flight off the tee. And boy, oh boy, did it work. So yeah, we're going to try and qualify for the US Open in a couple of years when it's at Oakmont, because it's a course that I have experience at. Now the qualifier won't be there, of course. So that's kind of negligible for that. But if I make it through for some godforsaken reason, which isn't going to happen, obviously, I'm not delusional, that I'd get to play Oakmont, a course that I've played a bunch. So who knows? Rory almost 30%. I have him at like 22% when it comes to his Showdown ownership. So that's lower than John Rahm. John Rahm, I have it nearly 30%. Steven says, do you like Willett in single entry for Showdown? Ooh, I don't think it'll be chalk, but he's -5, right? He's playing super well. So he's going to get some sort of attention from the field. Where's he at? He's $6,400. I don't hate it. Because in single entry, I'm assuming that you're at least going to somewhat differentiate up top, right? You're not going to take John Rahm, Max Homa together in that kind of lineup. That's fine. Yeah, he's playing well. He's trending well. Made the cut at the Pebble Beach Pro-Am over there on the European Tour. He's had a few other top end finishes all around that side. Yeah, I like it. Underdog dropped strokes in birdies. Okay, I love it. Cool, 7 minutes ago. So I can actually touch on that at the end of the video. I was worried about that. And I'm banned from the Prize Picks Discord, as I know you know, Damon, but most of you out there know that as well. So I can't even check when they're going to post the board. It's very petty of them. But thank you for letting me know. That helps me out a lot, Damon. A says, yo, what's up, bro? If Luke List can putt just average, he'd be leading this golf tournament. He would be. And I always take a chance on him when he plays POA, because 3 times in his career, and it's like 3 times out of like 50 events. So it doesn't happen very often, right? He gains a bunch of strokes on POA. He did it at the Farmers a couple years ago, cashed out, at least in terms of like odds, my best outright to date. It was well over 100 to 1 for Luke List at that golf tournament. And I'll always take chances over at these long, ball striking tests with POA. So yeah, man, hopefully he can find the putter over the weekend. I know he's not going to win here, but that'd be nice for Showdown. That's for sure. Are we getting back tomorrow? Are you on the toilet crapping out the L's? Yeah, dude. Obviously, that's a pretty douchebag thing to say. Just saying, bro. Like, do you go up to your buddies in real life after to do something wrong and just like kick them in the shin? Like that seems like a pretty douchey thing to do. We'll leave it at that. I'm not going to do anything else on that, but it was a pretty douchey thing to say. That's all I'll say. Damon says, Prize Picks board up. Okay, sweet. So we got that to talk over too. Matt says, we would hammer Birdie or better props if you made it. Yeah, they'd probably have me at like 0.5 birdies. especially with how the lines makers, think of me. So yeah, obviously hammer the over 0.5. I'm definitely making at least one. Can Homa be stopped? Did you see his low plugged ball? I don't know, man. I think he likes this golf course. That's for damn sure. In terms of Showdown, I don't think he's going to go out there and nuke the course again. Like, I don't see him going out there shooting like 7 under par, like you saw there in the first day. But I think he's going to put himself in contention. He's going to get his nose in there, go out there, probably shoot something like 2, 3 under par. And someone's going to have to chase him down, right? Someone's going to have to go out there, take it low tomorrow to pass up Max Homa. And if he goes out there, he shoots some like 3, 4 under par, like he's done consistently, literally for like the last 4 months. Like he doesn't have bad rounds anymore. Like Max Homa is just consistently a stud at this point. He might not be stopped, might not even be possible. So we'll leave it there. For somebody who would like to try golf, would you recommend hitting a course first or a range? Range 100%. You need to be making decent contact before you can go out there in the golf course. Or else it's just going to take too long. I don't want to say that you're going to be like a hassle to other people, but you're going to be a hassle to yourself, right? You're going to be overwhelmed. Courses can definitely be lower in difficulty, which are better for beginners. But it's a huge leap to be made. So I would go out there, just go to a range, right? It's a lot cheaper to go out there and just go to the range anyways, buy a bucket of balls. Whether you're renting clubs, whether you end up getting your own set of clubs, that's the biggest expense when it comes to golf. Just work on contact first. And the best way to do that is to learn how to chip first. That's how I learned how to golf. I went from baseball directly into golf when I was in high school. Actually, baseball coach thought that I'd be a good golfer, so put me into that as well. He was the coach of both teams. And I learned how to just get that solid contact with chipping. So I'd start there, man. If you're trying to learn the sport and whatnot, start with some chip shots, go out there in the range after you get the eye-hand coordination down a little bit, and then start to hit some full iron shots. That's what I would say. And then you can get out there in the course. It'll probably take you a couple weeks to get to that point, but if you work at it, you'll get there. Steven says, can Homa continue after his otherworldly putting? Probably not, right? Putting is extremely random, but the ball striking floor is there for Max Homa. So even if he doesn't go out there, gain 3, 4 strokes putting like he did the last 2 days, I know he's number 1 in the field in shots gained putting. He's still probably getting it under par. So I don't know if I'd worry about it too much if I'm a Homa backer, but certainly the case when you're looking for those pop performances, it's not likely, right? Like with Jon Rahm, do we think he's going to hit the stands again, or he's going to hit trees again and get back to the fairway? Do we think Jon Rahm's going to go out there and gain 4 strokes putting? Likely not, right? So still think they're going to be in contention, could easily win the golf tournament. But for Showdown, I'd rather take my chances on these lower owned plays. So it's worth noting that Xander Schauffele also, made the cut on the number. How sick was that iron shot he hooped there on that par 5, by the way? It was like 180 yards. So it wasn't even like a wedge shot that he went out there and hooped it to make the cut. So guy's got ice in his veins. And anytime you have one of these chalky players that makes the cut either on the number or close to the number, they usually end up smashing over the weekend. I mean, they're solid plays to begin with. And I know he played poorly today, right? Shot like 4 over par when it was all said and done. That's golf sometimes. That's just how it works. Sometimes these guys go out there and have a piss poor day, right? Sometimes you end up getting hooked on all of your props on Prize Picks, right? That's what ended up happening to me today. That's why I got annoyed by that douchebag's comment before that was talking about the Prize Pick stuff, because I got hooked on 6 props, right? So it's not like the props went horribly. Like with Tiger, I got hooked. I got hooked on Hideki, got hooked on Rory, just like prop after prop. That happens sometimes, right? If you're doing props, you're going to have days where it feels like you get hooked on everything. And there's going to be days when you're like Xander Schauffele and it feels like you can't hit a green or you can't make a putt or something like that, right? That's life. And instead of shitting on people like that, right, maybe look at it for what it is, right? Look at Xander's performance and go, he's a top-notch player that everyone wanted to play this week, right? Why not go back to him, right? So, again, I'm not trying to be a douchebag about that analogy there, but it's true, right? It's that same kind of story. So I'll be going back to those sort of players. Justin Thomas comes to mind there too, right? Didn't have his best day. Tony Finau hardly ended up making the cut. Also was sluggish out there. I could see him going out there, having a solid performance. And he actually has some momentum going his way. His poor performance was day 1, right? So his -1 doesn't truly reflect how he played today, where he shot a couple strokes under par. I like those sort of players. And Victor Hovland likes the course, right? He'll be low owned. Cam Young, Tom Kim, Ricky Fowler, like Adam Scott, all of these sort of players that just hardly made the cut by a stroke or two are going to be half, sometimes a third of the ownership of their peers. And in my opinion, it's not, I don't even think it's an opinion, right? They're maybe within 5% hit rate, or maybe within like a 5% like optimal rate compared to some of the other plays around them, right? And they're half the ownership. So it's clear pivots to me, at least if you're taking the ownership perspective. If you're going to take any chalk, which I'm more than okay with, right? Let's get that out there, right? Just because John Rahm's high owned doesn't mean you have to avoid him. Just because Max Homa's high owned doesn't mean you have to avoid him either. It's just if you play one of these two players, you have to take pivots to get leverage. I mean, if you start John Rahm, Max Homa, maybe your third man in, you try and squeeze in a Patrick Cantlay, right? Really go with like a studs and duds kind of approach. I mean, you're going to have a 3-on-3 versus 20% of the field. I mean, more realistically, probably like 7 to 10% of the field with those three players, but it's still significant enough to cause issues. So just be careful about that up top. If you're going to take pivots to begin with, which is just the strategy that I go with, it helps with being unique and not having 3-on-3s versus the rest of the field, but it also helps with getting leverage, right? So not just with having that unique factor, right? Not splitting first place with multiple people. It also helps when your guy hits, right? If your 5% player ends up being the nut scoring like 55 fantasy points, then only 5% of lineups have them, right? So it's not so much about duplicating yourself with other people as it is giving yourself an opportunity to actually leverage good plays. That's kind of the idea when it comes to ownership. Let's catch up on chat before we hop into this value tier range, see what's going on. How about Moronk? Yeah, man went off today. It was pretty sweet. Xander low tomorrow after that miracle backdoor today. That's what I'm thinking. You hit the nail on the head, right? That's what I just said here, actually in chat. So completely in lockstep, man. 100% agree. Of course, got you on the advice. It's a tough sport. I'll say that too, man. Like at first, it's going to be frustrating. You're going to hit a lot of balls sideways. You might even hit one backwards from time to time, but stick with it. The one shot out of 100 that you hit that's perfect, it'll hook you. It'll keep you coming back. So just keep hitting them. Dude, the Tiger hook today was a 5-unit difference for you. Yeah, I had him in most of my cards too. I was a complete homer and overplayed him. It was rough. I was on the course though. I didn't have to watch it. From my understanding, it was like watching a car wreck in slow motion. And yeah, like I said, glad I didn't have to see it. That's for sure. Board dropped. Tiger bumped to 3 birdies. Yeah, figured that would happen. That 2.5 birdie number on him was just drastically off. Yeah, dude. you see what I'm saying, man? Like, you're good. I'm glad that you did some self-reflection there, boss. It was just not the nicest thing to say. Damon says bumping already started. Tiger to 3, day to 4. Ooh, day to 4. I'm not sure I would have hopped on that so fast. Like getting it from 3.5 to 4. Like I think the board is probably going to be lower priced than it should be. Again, I haven't actually seen it yet, but like, I don't know. That's not the first prop I would have expected to be bumped. That's for damn sure. I'm so happy your dude Moronk is pulling through so far. Yeah, and I know a few other buddies of mine that were huge on Moronk, especially ones that were into the DP World Tour. He's making the DP World Tour truthers look really smart right now. So that's for sure. You love it after watching me. Okay. And you watch more UFC. Yeah, UFC is awesome. And he said, by the way, any way you can PM me, for sure. So do it on Discord if you can. I would say connect with me through the Discord or on Prize Picks, but I got banned from there. So maybe message me on Twitter. That's probably the easiest way to get into contact with me. Yeah, and my DMs, if they're not open on there, just shoot me a tweet and I'll follow you to make sure you can do that. All right, let's continue here in the 8K range. So we went through the top end of the board. Like I said, all of those players are like on the same level, right? Like you can pivot just to the low end guys, and I think you can get the job done. In the 7 and 6K range, even the lower end of the 8K range, you have to be a little bit more selective, right? Just because someone's low owned doesn't mean you have to play them, right? So let's just make that clear. A few guys I want to point out, Ricky Fowler, he had a horrible day today, but just based on how he's played the last few weeks, I'm willing to forgive that. Now, if Ricky Fowler was coming in without form and went out there and lost like he did on approach today, I would be a lot more concerned about it than like he's played of late. So hopefully it's just a 1-round aberration for good old Big Dick Rick. But $8,200, I'm going back in, particularly because he's relatively low owned. much lower owned than what you had for round 2 Showdown. Keith Mitchell should probably be avoided at all costs. I'll just say that. He's a great player. Don't get me wrong. Like, I've been playing this guy for the last 3 years when it comes to PGA DFS. I saw him win at the Honda Classic live in person. Was pretty sweet. One of the first tour events I actually saw down here in Florida in person. But he's not worth being chalk. Like, the guy's nearly 20% owned at this point. So there's levels to the madness when it comes to some of these value tier plays. It's somebody that's like 20% owned here in the 7K range. That's like being 35% owned there in the 10K range, right? It's all relative. Up top, you expect guys to be chalky because of the price, right? People are going to spend all of their salary. Not so much in the 7K range, right? You have more options in the 7K range. You don't have to spend in the 7K range, right? Or as much, right? Like, you're going to take 10K guys in every single lineup. It's not a guarantee that you're going to take somebody here between like $7,800 to $7,400. So when somebody is 20% owned or 25% owned, like Keith Mitchell might be, that's why it's so concerning. So I wanted to point that out. A few other intriguing plays. Wyndham Clark, if he makes the cut. Again, I mentioned this off the bat, but for anybody that's just hopping in, the cut line hasn't officially been decided, but it is going to be 1 over par. So for somebody like Wyndham Clark, who hasn't finished their round yet, if they end up making the cut, I think he might be a little bit lower owned than he should be. So I like him at $7,300 if he makes the cut. Corey Connors, another guy who just squeaked through. I think he could go out there, post a bounce back, particularly because he's so dependent on the putter, and that's the most random part of PGA DFS. And if he has everything else working, like Coco does to this point, I like his chances to maybe go out there and hit that pop performance. Worth noting that Gary Woodland also getting quite a bit of ownership. Shane Lowry is clearly mispriced based on how he's playing, where he's there at -4 in the top 22. Shane Lowry is going to be relatively chalky, which, unfortunate. I love myself, the good old big Irish lad. Me and him, similar body type. So I'm just empathize with the guy. It's hard to play golf when you're not as flexible, you're not quite as limber as other people. But when you can go out there and take people's money, take their ass out there when you're playing like that, I think it's even more impressive. So hats off to Shane Lowry out there. I wish I could play it for Showdown, but like 15% ownership down there at $7,200, it's going to be a no from me. Few other guys in the 6K range, so it drops off quickly. You can see a lot of the guys here between like $6,800 to $7,200 missed the cut, so there's not a bunch of options. Down here in the 6K range, Moronk's getting some ownership, so that's kind of unfortunate, right? Like, going into the week, he was our low-owned gem. Now I have him right around like 5-6% ownership, so I'm probably staying away. I prefer guys like a Kurt Kitayama if he makes the cut, just because he's more of a proven prospect, and he's like half the ownership as Moronk now. Nick Hardy also on the cut line. Actually, he's at +2, so he has to birdie a hole to end up making it to the weekend. If he's able to do so, also like a Wyndham Clark, he's going to be lower owned than other players because of that. And even more so than like Wyndham Clark, who's actually within the cut line right now, because Nick Hardy's at +2, he's going to be even lower owned. So perhaps a spot of leverage to get to, but you're going to have to keep an eye on his performance tomorrow morning before you go out there and do so. Down towards the middle to bottom end, there are plays, right? These guys, like Christian Bezainhoud especially, right? Like Svensson, Mackenzie Hughes, they're normally like $7,500 to $8,000. Like, these are legitimate golfers. One that I really like specifically would be a JJ Spawn. I like his chances. Mackenzie Hughes, I know I just mentioned him. He's a pretty decent play too. Tends to play difficult golf course as well. Also has that driving distance, which is helpful around Riviera, which he didn't used to have, right? He had to get in that weight room out there, get a little bit buffer to get some more success out there, but he did. That's for damn sure. Ben Taylor, he was the DFS sweetheart a few weeks ago, right? He was like 15% owned at one of those weaker field events, and now he's $6,400 in Showdown and like 1.5% owned. No one wants to use the guy, right? And just a few weeks ago, right, he was finishing top 10 in strong field events like the Houston Open and whatnot. I love it. These are the kind of guys I love getting to. They're just higher tier players than their peers, lower owned, and people love to forget about them when they're not shooting 5 under par every single day, which is just unrealistic to expect from these players when the scoring average is over par, like it was here for Friday. Before we hop into the bare end bottom of the board, let's catch up on chat. Bet you'll do it real quick, of course. I got you on Twitter. PD says Cam Young, another disappointment. Yeah, I'm playing him in Showdown, that's for sure. I didn't play a bunch of them in 4-round stuff. He was like an 18% owned play for me. So just like 2x the field there. If people are going to be tilted about it, right? That's kind of why people don't play these players in DFS, especially for Showdown, is you feel so tilted, so jaded about it after they struggle over the first 2 days that you hop off the train just before they go out there and shoot 7-8 under par. So I'll just say it, PD, stay strong if that's the kind of sentiment that you're going with. If you're pissed off at Cam Young, it's even more reason to play him. I'll just tell you, because it happens time and time again. That's just how Showdown works. Golf's a fickle sport like that. Myron says, what are your thoughts on modern golf coverage? Today, it seemed like they showed the same 10 players the whole broadcast. Part of that's the Tiger effect. Now, that wasn't a huge factor for today's broadcast because of the fact that Tiger played in the morning. But yesterday, right, that's all we saw. Tiger Woods, JT, Rory. Tiger Woods, JT, Rory, just rinsed and repeated over and over again. I think they have a lot of room for improvement. I'll say that. I don't think there's any doubt about that. You can tell that they're trying to change it up, right? Getting the on-course interviews. They're starting to, implement new segments with Mark Immelman, even though they're super corny, but they're trying, right? So they're recognizing that there's that room for improvement. So yeah, there's stuff they can improve. I would say a lot of that really comes down to just showing more golf shots. That's what we want to see. We don't want to see as many, shots back in the booth when they're just going through like Jim Nance and Mark, right? Like that's nice every once in a while, but it seems like they do that like once every like 10 minutes or once every commercial break, that kind of thing. Especially like the guys that maybe don't mean all that much to like the winner of the week, but like on Saturday and Sunday, us fans at home want to see the guys that are throwing those darts to 2 feet, right? Like even if it's somebody that's tied for 50th, right? Like show us sick golf shots, right? Like that's what we want to see. That would be my biggest gripe, is that like not everything has to be for the showbiz side. Like, and I feel like that's what they do. Like they try to make it like an NFL broadcast where there's all this extra extravagant stuff going on, which I think for NFL works because that's kind of what people want, right? It's like more of entertainment. But like as hardcore golf fans, like we just want to see the golf shots, right? We want to be able to track our players. I hope they fix that problem at some point. You got your wish about Ricky, hammering him next week at 25-1. Yeah, he made the cut, unfortunately, though. So I kind of wish that he would have missed it, so we got a better number. But yeah, we're going to get a pretty decent number on him, that's for sure. JM says Johnny Vegas in his 5th percentile putter. Ball striking numbers are decent. You got to worry about that putter, though, right? Whether it's going to sustain here into next round. So ball striking numbers being decent, you love to see that. But the putter, I wouldn't count on it. So if you're playing him in cash, I think in cash, he's probably an excellent play. Honestly, the more I think about it, right, if you have that ball striking floor and you're putting well, that's like the perfect cash play, right? Just retain one of the two and you're going to have a good day, let alone if you've retained both and you end up jumping way up the board. So yeah, man, that's a really good play. That's for sure. Facts, they showed the same 3 groups all day. That's for sure. Do you think we should go back to Tiger on strokes? Rory, birdies are better. Those, yeah, we'll have to see the lines. I actually haven't looked at them yet. So without seeing the lines, I don't want to give you an answer. But based on, usually there's an overreaction, I would say. I mean, even Prize Picks is guilty of doing that, right? Rory will go out there, his line will be 4.5 the day before. Maybe he, doesn't have the best day. They might lower him from 4.5 down to 4. Those are spots that you want to exploit because just like Showdown, right? Golf is random day to day. Projections on players shouldn't change based on one day's performance. So like if conditions were the exact same and you could guarantee it, right? Pin locations, weather, all of that day to day, and they changed projections, like you would just want to hammer the ones that changed in the direction of where the projections were before. So yeah, that makes sense. We'll take a look at the board here in like 5 minutes and I'll give you a definitive answer there. So let's finish up DFS. At the bare bones bottom of the board, Lee Hodges is getting a bunch of ownership. So play anybody but him and you're fine, right? I mean, even like a Peter Malnati, he's getting a little bit more ownership than most players, but I'm fine with it, right? Because Lee Hodges is just sucking up like 10, 15%. So he's kind of the black hole of ownership down low. Just make sure you avoid that and you should be good to go. But like a Pan Kazire, if he's able to make the cut, he's intriguing, but he has like a 20-foot par putt when he comes back. So he's likely to go from +1 to +2. And then it's going to have to make a birdie to end up making the cut, but he does have a par 5 left. So it's possible. And it's possible he also makes the 20-foot par putt. So I'll be keeping an eye on Pan. If he makes the cut, I'll be playing him. Kita Nakajima, he's the X factor, okay? I've got a weird feeling that Nakajima is going to make a run and make the cut. He has the most holes left of any player left. He's got a par 5. He's also got the easiest par 3 on property left. If he makes the cut and he's 2 shots off right now, he's literally going to be like 0.01% owned, or like maybe like 0.02% owned. And I'll be playing him because Kita Nakajima is a former #1 amateur in the world. In fact, he had, I believe, I think it was a second place finish at a PGA Tour event during the fall swing. And people forget about that with Nakajima. That kid is a stud. He's maybe not the most consistent, but if he's able to squeak through the cut line somehow, just watch out. That kid has a lot more firepower than almost all of his peers. Let's go ahead and hop onto Draftkings now. And we're going to go ahead and talk through some of the cash lineup, some of the top cash plays you might want to consider. We talked about a few players before that I was kind of considering for this. I mean, Jon Rahm, Max Homa are like the clear 2 guys up top that you could put in this sort of lineup. But like Johnny Vegas, right? I know we just had that little conversation about him, but based on how he's striping the ball, and I'm gonna go ahead and give you guys the exact stats right here. It's the perfect type of cash play, right? You want somebody that has the ball striking floor, and then ideally he's also mixing it in with the putter. So 1 second here, I'm bringing it up on my phone. Unfortunately for live in-tournament stats, I'm not able to pull those through my database. I pull them after the week. It's a painstaking process. I need to automate it a little bit better. Perhaps we can start to get the live stats in tournament, but let's see what we've got here for good old Johnny Vegas. So he's at -3. He shot +1 today, which, is what it is. It's about par for today. He gained a bunch on approach, gained off the tee, lost strokes putting. Day 1, right? Gained off the tee, gained on approach, and gained putting. And it was only like 0.3 strokes. Gained on the greens. Perfect cash play. So, by the way, whoever pointed that out before, I'm going to give you credit right now. JM, that it's the perfect cash play. And he's probably going to get a bunch of ownership for that reason too, which is even better for cash. So if you take those 3 here at $7,300, I mean, you could probably take an 8K option. Keith Mitchell, right, is like a perfect candidate for that. Kind of like Vegas, ball striking it well, putting it well, getting that ownership. And then you can use your imagination for the last 2 spots, right? You have $7,100 remaining. Now, sometimes I talk about maybe taking a more conservative approach. So instead of going to Jon Rahm, maybe you go Patrick Cantlay, right? You go down here and take Will Zalatoris. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. It escaped from me there. Let's put Will Zalatoris in there. And then you still have right around 75.5 remaining per player. And you already have 3 studs too. So like there's multiple ways to skin a cat here. Obviously, you could take the Jon Rahm up top. You can take the more balanced approach. It just more depends on your comfortability taking a 6K golfer, right? Maybe going down here to, let's say, like $6,800 and taking like an Aaron Rai, who, if he makes the cut, is one of the more consistent players that you have on tour. So, like I said, multiple different ways to take apart the cash lineup, but I think a Jon Rahm, Max Homa should be key features of that. In terms of GPP plays, let's go ahead and take a look at that. As long as you differentiate up top, like you can play whoever the heck you want. So if you want to take, let's say, a Xander as your first man in, Tony Finau, let's put Cam Young in this sort of lineup. Just all the disappointments to this point, right? Let's put Ricky Fowler in this sort of lineup. You can pair him with whoever the heck you want, right? Let's say you wanted to take a really chalky Lee Hodges, which I think is one of the worst plays that you get to on the slate, if I'm being frank with you. I wouldn't recommend it, but you could in this kind of lineup. Like I'd be okay with it just because you have that many pivots up top. So My theory is just always take those leveraged plays. Not only does it help you out when you're building lineups, it simplifies your life, right? You can just pretty much mix and match whoever you want to. It does give you that leverage to the field, and a lot of that just boom bust ability when it comes to GPP lineups. So we'll see if there's any GPP questions down there. If not, we're going to hop into the prop side. So see what's going on. I know it's not the time, but at the end, we'll be going over the underdog board. Well, you're lucky, man, because it is time now. So let's go ahead and go into the props. I appreciate the respect there, of course. You know the program. You've been here enough, GameCube. You know how it works. But let's talk some props. So kind of like the last time we did this stream, this dropped during the live stream here in the last 45 minutes. So this is going to be a live reaction. But I did my research before we came on here. A lot of that was for Showdown, right, to make sure I could do my projections properly. I really think there's going to be an edge for birdies. So I want to take a look at that board to begin. So they got Rory at 4.5 again. So they didn't put him at 4. So they didn't bump him down. That would have been a lock at 4 birdies, by the way. I would have put entirely too much money on Rory there. But let's see what we're working with. Okay. Most of the board at 4.5. Xander at 4 looks juicy. Cantlay at 4 looks juicy. Tom Kim at 4. Yeah, I like this board, boys. I think we're looking at a juicy right board for tomorrow. And I'm going to show you guys why. So I didn't have the pin locations up. I'm going to bring them up right now just to show you guys what I'm thinking. So let me share my screen again. We're good to go now. There we go. And take a look at these pins for tomorrow. And most notably, I want you to take a look at 17. 17 is a par 5. It's about 560 yards to the middle of the green. That front pin is about 540 yards. And in the morning, it's going to play into the wind as it has the last few days. And then in the afternoon, when the leaders are playing hole 17, it's going to play downwind. So the guys that are already in contention, that are already playing pretty decently, should have no problem of making birdie there. So I like that for a lot of players. Hole 10 is the drivable par 4, the one that a lot of guys have even been bogeying this week. I'm sure you've seen a lot of the highlights. Is a front middle pin. This front middle pin is as easy as it gets. It takes an extremely difficult hole and makes it probably the easiest hole on property, because pretty much no matter where you lay this up, it's a simple up and down. I mean, even this back bunker, you have all of this green to work with. And sure, it runs away at all of the edges of this green, but there's no bunkers that you're going to like chip into, right? If you hit it into this front right bunker, right? It's a little bunker shot. And sure, you might not hit it to 5 feet out of there, right? It's going to be a tough shot to get really close. You're not going to see bogeys at hole number 10. And if you lay up, the key layup here would just be anywhere but the bunkers on hole 10, right? Anywhere to the left in the fairway is going to be essentially a guaranteed up and down. Like you'd have to duff the chip to not make a birdie. That's going to be extremely helpful as well. So you have holes 10 and 17. Hole 6 is the donut green. The back of the donut green is heavily sloped from back to front, which means that any shot that goes long at 6 is just going to roll off the hill and come right back to the pin. In fact, you've seen hole in ones at 6 with the pin that you have there. Hole, let's see, a lot of them are like 6 paces off the side. A few of them are tucked, right? Like hole 3 looks tucked, but it is a front pin. 4 is in the middle of the green, so that's another really easy birdie look. It's looking like your typical moving day for Riviera, and over the years for round 3, you've seen about a 0.8 birdie difference between rounds 1, 2, and 4 and round 3 when it comes to the birdie average. So on Saturdays at Riviera, right, these guys normally nuke the golf course. So that's why I think this birdie board is going to be just as ripe for the taking as it is. So, I kind of pointed out Xander before. I think he's one of my favorite plays. But the guys that are actually in contention, I like the fact that they're going to be able to play 17 downwind. That's what you've seen the last 2 days. They talked about that on the broadcast a little bit earlier. So like a Patrick Cantlay at 4, especially with his length, like I really, really like. Like, I don't know, like Corey Connors at 3.5, like I would like, but he just doesn't have the best putter in the world. These guys at 4 birdies for like the early part of the week, I was a little bit more hesitant on. But now that we have the easy pins, like I think I'm going to go full bore at it. So even though Xander, right, is playing in the morning, he might not have 17 downwind because he's playing the back 9 first. And by the way, that's the reason why they're all teeing off within like 2 hours. So there's not going to really be like a morning and an afternoon wave. That's not going to be a thing. But Xander's going to start on the back nine. So who knows if he's playing into the wind or downwind at that point. But I'd still take him there at 4 birdies. Let's see. I mean, like even a Rory at 4.5, right? He's ideally going to be playing it downwind. John Rahm at 4.5, I probably wouldn't be shy about taking. I mean, maybe more Morikawa at 4.5, I don't take just because I'd rather him at 4. But like Tony Finau, Will Zalatoris towards the top of the board. Like we know he's playing well. He's already an aggressive player. I'm liking this board. I'm thinking there's going to be a lot of pushes tomorrow. I'm thinking that these guys at 4 are more than liable to go out there and just stay at 4, right? Push. But you're going to see a lot of them go over. And I think you're going to see a lot more go over their props tomorrow than under. Going over to strokes, let's see if there's any values or maybe differences between the boards. Perhaps where somebody is a slightly better play for strokes than they are for birdies or better. Guys at 69, that seems about right. I wish they were at 69.5. You can see only one guy on the board at 69.5. That's kind of disappointing. I would expect the scoring average to get better. Not only do you have a higher quality of player in the field, so just in general, the scores are going to get better. But you also have just the easier pins. So there's a few things helping these players. So I don't hate strokes, but I wish they were at 69.5. The lower tier guys at 70.5, that's probably a decent projection. A few fades that we can take at any difficult course, right? If you have somebody like a lower tier player projected under par, there's going to be fades to be taken. But yeah, it's looking like a pretty decent board shaping up. So I'll leave these 3 on there. Those are my favorite 3 props I've seen so far. But nothing's been locked in at this point. In fact, I got to log in to the actual, I don't even know what account this is. This isn't my actual Prize Picks account on here. I got to log into my actual account to enter slips. Let's see what's going on. Matchup board's never going to be my favorite. Just want to make that clear, right? If you're new here, I'm somebody that hates matchups. They're coin flips at best here. But like Bezuidenhout versus Donald, like Donald can't make birdies, but neither can Christian Bezuidenhout, right? Like that's a pure coin flip right there. They put Zalatoris versus Dietrich. I actually like Zalatoris there. I don't know. Plugged. Hopefully my mic wasn't unplugged for too long, boys. It says that it's working now. Hopefully it should be. Yeah, we're working on the right mic. Hopefully that wasn't out for too long. Hopefully it was only a couple seconds there. Hopefully it's better now. I apologize there, boys. I can see a few people are leaving, so I think it was off for like a minute. I apologize there. I was pretty much saying with matchups, because I think it might have been out for like 30 seconds. They're just not my favorite, right? They tend to be coin flips more than anything. And unless you guys have any specific that you really like down there in comments, probably going to avoid them. Cool, we're good now. Apologize. You said it was for a hot sec. Yeah, my bad. I don't have it up on another screen, so it's sometimes it happens. My bad. Word. Let's go through greens regulation. So the green average this week has been a lot lower than what we're used to seeing. In fact, for Thursday, it was like 10.3 greens. I haven't run the average here for Friday yet, so I'll have to take a look at what the green regulation average was for today. I can't imagine it was very high because Brandel Chambly was like mind blown by it. Look at this. They have 2 Tiger Woods props on here. I wonder if you can play both and you to get away with it. So let's see if this works. Actually, I'm not even on my account. I can't even enter this. You guys should try and enter this prop because if it'll let you take the 2 Tiger ones in the same slip, you can get a 14.5x payout, right? Or maybe you take the overs together, right? So maybe you just do this. You take either 2 overs together or like you take the 2 unders together or something like that on a card. I don't know, maybe worth exploring. Again, I don't have my count up here, so I can't actually check whether that's possible. But if it is, looks like a pretty solid edge that could be had. That's for sure. Yeah, the double greens is a little strange. That's for sure. It was good when I was picked up the glass. Okay, gotcha. So it was only like a minute. Cool. All right. Hey, if you pieced out of here in that minute, you don't need the props anyways. That's fine. Let's look at the hole one shots. I think they only have Tiger up. Is that right? Yeah, they only have Tiger up. You'd have to think that he birdies it, given how easy the pin location is. It's in the back right, but I don't know. There's better Tiger props to be taken. At 2.5 birdies or better, it was one of the better props that I've ever seen. But even at 3 birdies, I would take the over on it. In fact, there's a good chance that on my write-up, I still write them up at 3 birdies. At 2.5, it was, I don't want to say it was a lock, but it was one of the better props that you could get. They have Tiger at 73.5 strokes. I would probably go back there too. I mean, you heard him today. He told the reporters that his score of 74 today was literally the worst that he could have possibly done. He missed 5 putts from less than 8 feet. 3 of them were less than 4.5 feet long. That's not going to happen again. So we'll see what Tiger prop I actually end up going with. I'll put the strokes one on there for now. Go ahead and add the Xander one back, add the Cantlay and Zalatoris. These are the top 4 props I'm looking at right now. So just if you're watching this, right, you're not on the Patreon, maybe go ahead and enter a little, 4 like flex play there. But as per usual, if you want access to all the props I'm taking, the actual write-up I'm posting later, where I have all the averages from Thursday and Friday on there, all of the props that I'm taking for tomorrow, check out the Patreon. So that's where all those will be posted. But let's check out chat and see if there's any questions, and then hop into Underdog. So let's do that. It won't let you. All right. Not sure. Now you can't. You won't let you do the double. So that's what you're saying that you couldn't let you do. That's unfortunate. That would have been a little exploit to take advantage of. That would have been pretty nice. Underdog has the 3 guys at 4 birdies too. Don't have to worry about the multiplier. Absolutely elite. So speaking of Underdog, let's take a look at it. What's going on, Jimmy Capriccio down there, my boy? You had a banger card today. So my props were dog shit. So I'm glad that somebody hit today. Somebody was able to go out there and have some success. It was a tough scene on my side. I'll just say that. Let's take a look at PGA, see what we're working with. So yeah, they got Tiger at 3.5 birdies. That's probably more realistic. So obviously over there on Prize Picks, you're getting better numbers. Let's see. So they have Rory at 4.5, Rom at 4.5. So it's looking pretty consistent so far. And obviously you said they had Zalatoris, Xander, and Cantlay at 4. So that's also consistent. Wow. Did they just copy and paste the board? It's kind of what it looks like. It kind of looks like they just copy and pasted the board from site to site, which is quite something. Maybe they just, had the same idea. I don't know. Could be a couple different things. Got Scott at 70.5 strokes. Oh, I actually kind of like that. I see a prop I like over there, guys. That 70.5 strokes for Adam Scott, right? They have him projected where a lot of the guys on Prize Picks are like lower tier players, like Sepp Straka, Harris English, whatnot. And I know Adam Scott to this point, right? He's like even par. He hardly made the cut. The guy's won multiple times here and has like, I think 7 top 10 finishes here at Riviera Country Club. You got to think that he's probably able to get it under par, particularly with moving day when conditions are going to be as gettable as humanly possible. I'm kind of liking that over there in Underdog. So for now, I think that's the first prop we're going to click in on that side. Going to be the Adam Scott under strokes. Let's see what else we can work with though. So a lot of similar props, right? Like if you want to take the Cantlay, Xander, Zalatoris, you can do it over there. They have Corey Connors at 71 strokes. I know that he didn't have the best day today, but you have to think that he probably goes at least even par or better as well. I mean, given that he's a better player than average for the field, and also he's an extremely consistent player, which is a huge bonus, right? When we're looking at a prop kind of bet, like what we have there. They have Jordan Spieth at 4 birdies, right? Is he even on the birdie or better board for Prize Picks? How dare they? They don't put Jordan on the Prize Picks board? What kind of bullshit is that? Like, he's going to be one of the more popular players in the field, and they don't put him on the board? Well, you know what? I'm going to bet him on Underdog then. It's that simple. Okay, over 4 birdies? Noted. Prize Picks doesn't want to offer the prop on Jordan because they know he's going to smash tomorrow. The guy couldn't make a putt for his life. His irons have been on absolute fire over the first 2 rounds. In fact, I'm going to look up his shots gained metrics. Are you saying he's a +2? So why the hell is he on Underdog? Why the hell didn't I think of that either? He wasn't even on my projections. I feel like a dumbass right now. Why is he even on there then? Why is he even on? I guess they're just saying if he makes the cut. But how do DMPs work on Underdog? Because they have him on there, and maybe they have other guys that are going to miss the cut too. I'm going to double check that now. I think that's the only one I see that's going to miss the cut would be Jordan Spieth. They have him up there. Everyone else looks like they're making the cut. Yeah, it's a good question what they're doing with that. But I was giving Prize Picks a hard time about not having Jordan Spieth, and he didn't even make the cut. So I need to simmer down over here. So I like these 4 props. Unfortunately, you do have the issues with multiplier. So if you have, let's say, any sort of DNP you can work with. So it could be a League of Legends map 3, right? You could try and find a match that looks like it's going to be over after 2 maps. You go over here to CSGO, do the same thing, right? They have the map 3 kills and map 3 headshot props to go through. Rocket League, actually, they don't do it for Rocket League. They used to do maps 1 through 3, but now they do maps 1 through 4. Those are all prime candidates because if you can find one of these that'll DNP, you'll get the normal payout structure, right? So let's try and add one more PGA prop so we can get the full effect here. So let's see. Let's find another over for birdies or better, and then add one more to make it a normal 5x payout. So I'm leaning Finau or Tom Kim just because we do get that push in our back pocket there at 4 birdies. But I do like the Rory McIlroy over. So I'll go ahead and click him in there. And then we're going to find a DMP together here if possible. We're going to look at the board, see if we can find anything. It looks like all these matches start at like 4 a.m. though. So probably not going to find one for League. Over here, CSGO, there are matches starting in the next hour. So perhaps there's some matches going on that we can look at for that. But if you can find a map 3 DMP, these 5 players are going to get paid out a normal 5x structure, right? So assume this is a DMP there. Rather than paying the 20x for this, 6-leg flex payout, you're going to get a normal 10x 5-leg flex, which, without the DMP, right, you'd be getting paid only 7.5x. You'd be getting the same for 4 out of 5, but a significantly lower payout if you're getting all 5 correct. That's why this DMP is so powerful, because if you can find somebody that you can use as a DMP, then you're able to just get your normal payout structure. You can correlate your card, right? Take all overs, which again, it's kind of taking a gamble on conditions, right? We see low wins in the forecast. We also see relatively easy pin locations. This is more a bet on conditions tomorrow than it is on each player, right? That's the idea, right? That's why Prize Picks tries to lower your payout for cards with all props of the same direction. And if you can find a DNP, you can flip the tables on them. So that's the idea there. So yeah, we'll look at DNPs here in a second. Taking Spieth under 4 birdies. Yeah, I don't think they're going to pay it out though, unfortunately. But you can try. When McNeely withdrew, right, they ended up DNPing that prop. I was just trying to think of like a DNP would even be like advantageous on Underdog, and I can't think of a scenario where it would be. So unfortunately, there's not that. It just turns your 3 pick into a 2 and so on and so forth. So yeah, probably not that useful. 0 birdies, 0 holes. Gonna grind some XFL after the stream. Yeah, I've heard that XFL should be a huge moneymaker. So hey, if you have the time for it, the patience, the attention span, I hear you. Damon says, also had a pretty disappointing revelation on Underdog. You went 2, 1, and 2, okay, and it refunded you. But if you had 2 losses, oh, you're saying 2 pushes, okay. Yeah, because if you went 2 and 1 in Prize Picks, wouldn't it be like 1.5x or 1.25x? Like I know it's higher than 1x, whatever the case is. Yeah, I completely agree with you. Yeah, they do the same thing. I think I ran a 3-leg insurance card and I had 2 pushes and 1 hit and I got refunded. So it's that same kind of thing. Kind of BS. I completely agree. They removed Adam Scott's strokes. They're watching right now. They literally might be because I only gave you guys 2 props, right? It's not like I could have given you guys like a 4 or 5-leg card. Jeez. Yeah, geez Louise. What's going on, Jaden? Frank says, in terms of 2-mans, 3-mans, and 4-mans, which combo should you do the most for? 2-mans are the ones I play the highest dollar amount on. It's also the most of cards I have, or most of them are 2-man cards. But I enter the occasional 3-4-man card, right? It's fun to go after those 5, 10x payouts from time to time. But yeah, if you're looking to grind out ROI, make money consistently, you want to have most of your exposure on, like, I'd say like your core 3 or 4 props on 2-man powers. That's the way to go. Is the final cut going to be +1 or any possible change? So I'll show you data golf. They have it at 100% +1. Now, that's not necessarily true, right? Like, technically, Wyndham, Clark, Holmes, and Kazire, right, could all bogey. That would take it to 68th. Guys like Moronk could shoot like +3, right? Kitayama could shoot +3 his last 4 holes. Same thing with Aaron Rai. Then the cut line would move to +2. That's just not going to happen, right? And of course, from the stats perspective, there's virtually a 0% chance of that happening, right? Because Data Golf will put this to the 0.1%, right? They have 0.0% over there. They're not even giving it a 0.1% chance of that happening. So yeah, it's going to stay at +1. I can tell you that pretty definitively. Unless we get some 50-mile-an-hour winds tomorrow morning out of nowhere, which would be pretty hysterical. Because then Matt Fitzpatrick, who I know already took the jet home, Jordan Spieth probably already took the jet home too. Hideki Matsuyama, probably not in town either. They're going to have to figure out a way to get back before their round starts, which probably isn't happening. So they're probably withdrawing if that happens. That would be pretty wild for sure. All right, let's take one final look over here at some DNPs. So let me go ahead and stop sharing my screen and bring up HLTV, because my favorite DNPs to look at are CSGO, because there's just some powerhouse teams that you can take over there in CSGO that make things a little bit easier. So let's see what's going on. So you have, is this going on right now, this complexity? Yeah, it is. So the first map already happened, and it looks like complexity destroyed them. And complexity is one of the better teams out there. So are there round 3 matches for it? Let's just take a look. No, there's not. Yeah, I mean, actually, that might have just been a 1-map game from what it's looking like at this point. So let's see. Anything else over there in HLTV? There's guys going off at 1. So these are the games that are happening in like 50 minutes. I guess let's take a look at the odds. Do they have the odds on here? The pick of winners are close on that one. I don't know. If you guys, look at this one. So maybe if someone's really big into CSGO down here, let me know what you're thinking here. They have this as an 82-17. When odds are that much favored on one team like Clutch over they are the other team, sometimes that's when you get like just the absolute blowouts. And is that even something you can bet on is the other aspect of it, right? Because not everything is being offered on Prize Picks. It is. So when this one's at 3 a.m., something to keep an eye on, I'll say that. So I wouldn't bet it now. I wouldn't use this as a DMP before we know it's going to be one. But if you're going to be up at like 2, 3 a.m. tonight, you might want to take a look at this Clutch versus Kintsugi team. I think that's how you say it. That has a high probability of being a blowout just because of how many more people are taking Clutch as opposed to the other team. So perhaps keep an eye on that. Let's take a final look at Underdog. They took Scott Strokes under. Did they change it? No, they just took it off. It's ridiculous. I couldn't even get in my own card with Adam Scott under Strokes, and they bumped it off the board. That's unfortunate. Let's see. So they still have Jordan Spieth on the board. So I don't know if they're listening, or maybe they are and they're just not paying attention hard enough, because they still have Jordan Spieth up there at 4 birdies, 2.5 bogeys, 69.5 strokes. That's hysterical. I have to say that. You could take a few fades over here on Underdog. Unfortunately, you're not going to get the boosted payout though. So, you're not going to get those 14.5x flex plays, that kind of thing. I don't know. We'll have to see. It looks like Prize Picks might be the place to bet tomorrow, just based on some of the lines that I'm looking at right now. A lot of the guys at 4 are over there at 4.5 over there at Underdog. Like I said, Will Zalatoris is still at 4, so you could take that. Xander Schauffele as well. But yeah, it's looking like the value might be over there on that side, which it's a change. Normally, Underdog's the one posting the super soft lines. And I guess that's because we were at a difficult course, like the Farmers, right? They were posting more favorable lines for players, or they were posting them at like higher birdie numbers, lower strokes numbers than over there on Prize Picks. And now that we're looking at slightly easier conditions here for Saturday, I guess that's might be might be why we're seeing that difference. That's for sure. All right. That's all I've got here, boys. We're going to go ahead, catch up on chat, and then hop on out of here. Let me bring up golf prize picks. We'll get off of CSGO. Again, this isn't a CSGO channel here. So don't act like I'm the CSGO god, that's for sure. I might have been completely wrong about that clutch take, but just keep an eye on that score later. Gus says, oh, we already went over that. Okay. Bellamy says, Adam Scott is at 70.5. Okay, so they kept him there. Good. Frank says, I believe you can hit 6 more bankrolls, boss man. Yeah, I'm hoping so. I hope we can hit a 6-man tomorrow. That'd be pretty sweet. What about Adam Hadman's strokes? Okay, we'll take a look at it. So I know he's at 70.5, right? Bottom end of the board. I took his over today. I faded him. I'd be a little bit more hesitant to fade him today just because of the pin locations, right? Yesterday, you're looking at a few dicey spots. That's why it's 70 strokes. I really liked the fade. Now that he's at 70.5, it's right about where it should be. I think you'd probably project him for somewhere in the 70 to 70.5 range. So honestly, if anything, I guess I would lean under now based on the easy conditions, based on the fact that he's 0.5 higher than he was yesterday. But yeah, I'm staying away personally. I don't imagine myself betting on that. And it's worth noting, right? They have Corey Connors at 70.5. He's at 71 on Underdog, right? That was another prop that I liked on top of the Adam Scott prop. So you could take Scott and Corey Connors under strokes there. I think both of those are props I consider. And then, yeah, don't take the Jordan Spieth prop. You're just going to end up getting a DNP there. But that's all I've got, boys. Going to call it a night. Have some prize pick stuff to get into before we go ahead and hit the sack there in a little bit. But best of luck with all of your props, all of your DFS lineups for tomorrow. We'll be going live for round 4 as well. So expect a live stream, hopefully a little bit earlier, right? Hopefully there's not a huge delay. We're not finishing the round at like 8 p.m. Eastern time. It can go live a little bit more reasonable, right? Something like 9 p.m., 9:30, something like that. But check out the Twitter, right? I'll be posting what I'll be going live there. It'll be, of course, be on here on YouTube as well. Appreciate all the support. Appreciate all you guys stopping by, enjoying the stream. It's been a lot of fun. Hopefully feel a little bit more prepared for tomorrow. If you guys haven't already smashed that like button, go ahead and do so on your way out. And of course, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, so you don't miss any of the content in the future. We're getting just one day closer, right, over there to the Honda Classic. Field drop today. Doesn't look like we're going to have the best field that we've ever had. Definitely a lot of sour names, guys that we're not even used to seeing on the PGA Tour. But if you play golf every week, if you're one of these DFS hardcore fans, you're going to be able to have some fun with it, right? There's the Tyson Alexanders of the world, right? The Tyler Warbelows that we can play, the Max McGreevy's that might legitimately be in contention. And who couldn't forget Brian Stewart, right? You have freaking Sunjay Im's playing next week, right? He's going to be like the highest priced player on DraftKings. We'll have fun with it. There's definitely still money to be made. So again, guys, I appreciate all the support. I will catch you guys for the stream there in round 4, and let's get this cash.